These new highway rules are taking effect right now. Most American drivers are going to receive fines before they even understand what changed. Pull over and read this before you drive anywhere tomorrow. Effective immediately, new highway rules and updated traffic law enforcement standards are catching American drivers completely unprepared. We are not talking about minor technical adjustments that officers will informally overlook during a transitional grace period. We are talking about strict, immediate enforcement, with fines beginning the moment you make a mistake that was perfectly legal just days ago. Here is the part that should genuinely concern you. Most of the drivers who will be fined in the coming weeks are not reckless behind the wheel. They are not dangerous speeders blowing through school zones at reckless speeds. They are ordinary, careful, responsible drivers who simply had no idea the rules changed. Drivers who merged onto a highway the same way they have for 3 decades. Drivers who parked in the same spot they have used every Tuesday morning for 10 years. Drivers who held their phone at a red light without placing a single call or sending a single text. Those drivers are going to receive fines they never saw coming. Some will collect penalty points that drive their insurance premiums up by hundreds of dollars annually. Some will face mandatory traffic school requirements. And a smaller but significant number will face license reviews that directly threaten their ability to drive independently. This guide covers every major highway rule change currently taking effect across the United States, which specific drivers face the greatest exposure under each change, and precisely what you need to do before your next drive to ensure you are fully protected. Every update in this guide is drawn from publicly available traffic law revisions, official state DMV guidance, and law enforcement priority announcements. Read every section. Share this with every driver you care about because the information here could genuinely protect you from a fine, a point on your record, or something far more serious. Rule change. 1. Construction zone speed enforcement. The change that will catch the most drivers. Construction zone traffic laws have been on the books for decades. Every driver understands the basic concept. Slow down in work zones. Exercise caution around construction crews. Respect the reduced posted speed limits. This is not new information, but here is exactly what changed and why it matters far more than most drivers currently realize. Previously, the doubled fine rule for construction zones was activated only when workers were physically present and actively working inside the zone. You would encounter signs reading fines doubled when workers are present. If the crew had stepped away for a lunch break, if active work had paused for the day, if you were driving through at 6 in the morning before anyone had arrived on site, the doubled fine standard technically did not apply to that situation. That distinction has been eliminated entirely. Under the updated enforcement standard now being applied across highway construction zones nationally, fines are doubled at all times within any officially designated construction zone. The presence of orange signs indicating an active construction zone is now legally sufficient to trigger the enhanced penalty structure, automatically and without exception. It does not matter whether a single worker is visible anywhere within the zone. It does not matter what time of day or night you are traveling through. It does not matter whether any construction activity appears to be occurring at the specific moment you pass through. If orange construction zone signs are posted, enhanced fines apply. Full stop. Enforcement officers have publicly confirmed they are issuing citations to any driver exceeding the posted construction zone speed limit by even a single mile per hour above the posted limit. There is no informal buffer. There is no grace zone. 1 mile per hour over the construction zone speed limit is now a fully citable offense subject to doubled fine penalties. What this means practically for your daily driving is straightforward. The instant you see orange highway signs designating a construction zone, you treat that zone as if an entire work crew is standing directly alongside your vehicle. You reduce your speed to the posted limit immediately. You maintain that speed throughout the entire designated zone, not just in the visible work areas, and you do not resume your normal highway speed until you have completely cleared the zone and passed the signs indicating that the construction zone has ended. The financial impact of a single construction zone violation under the new doubled fine standard can reach several $100s depending on your state. Factor in the insurance premium increases triggered by a moving violation on your record, and the total real-world cost of 1 moment of inattention in a construction zone can easily exceed $1,000 in combined consequences. Drive accordingly. Rule change 2. Highway merging laws. Decades of habit now illegal. This is the rule change that is going to generate the most disbelief from experienced drivers. If you have been behind the wheel for 20, 30, or 40 years, the merging behavior you were originally taught and have practiced throughout your entire driving life may now constitute a traffic violation under current law. Here is what changed. The previously common practice of significantly slowing down or coming to a near complete stop at the end of an entry ramp before attempting to merge into moving highway traffic has been officially updated in multiple states to align with current traffic safety standards. Under the updated rules now being actively enforced, you are legally required to use the full length of the available entry ramp to accelerate your vehicle and match the speed of existing highway traffic before completing your merge. Deliberately slowing down or stopping at the merge point is now classified as creating a dangerous traffic condition. If you slow to a near stop on an entry ramp and the vehicle immediately behind you is forced to brake suddenly or swerve to avoid a collision, you bear legal responsibility for creating that hazard. This can result in a traffic citation even when no collision actually occurs. If a collision does occur behind you as a direct result of your sudden deceleration at the merge point, you can be held legally liable for that accident and any injuries or property damage that follow. Law enforcement officers are specifically monitoring entry ramps during peak commute hours as part of the current Enforcement Priority Initiative. Officers positioned to observe on-ramp behavior are watching for exactly this pattern of dangerous low-speed merging. The correct merging procedure under current traffic law is clearly defined. Use the full acceleration lane. Match the speed of vehicles already traveling in the lane you are entering. Signal your intention to merge clearly and well in advance. Identify a safe gap in traffic and complete your merge smoothly at highway speed without creating a sudden speed differential that forces other drivers to react unexpectedly. If the entry ramp is genuinely too short or traffic conditions make it impossible to reach highway speed before the ramp ends, you should yield completely and wait for a safe, adequate gap, rather than forcing a dangerous low-speed merge into high-speed traffic. What you cannot legally do under the current standard is slow to a crawl or stop at the merge point and then attempt to nose your vehicle into moving traffic. Practice this. Adjust your habits. This is an active enforcement priority right now. Rule change. 3. Prescription medication and driving. Critical information every driver needs. This section contains information that could carry serious legal consequences for millions of American drivers, particularly those managing ongoing health conditions with prescription medications. Law enforcement officers now have expanded legal authority to request chemical testing of drivers suspected of impairment, even when absolutely no alcohol consumption is involved. Specifically, officers can now request a blood test or saliva test from any driver they have reasonable cause to believe may be impaired, and the suspected impairment can be attributed to prescription medication rather than alcohol or illegal substances. This is not an entirely new concept in traffic law. Driving under the influence of any impairing substance has always included prescription medications. What has changed is the enforcement priority level, the expanded officer authority to initiate testing, and the updated thresholds used to determine whether detected medication levels constitute legal impairment. Certain categories of prescription medications commonly taken by American adults for legitimate, physician-managed medical conditions can result in a driving under the influence charge if detected in your system above specific threshold levels, and if your driving behavior provided the officer with reasonable cause to initiate the stop and subsequent testing. These categories include certain sleep aids and sedatives, certain anti-anxiety medications in the benzodiazepine family, certain prescription pain medications, including opioid-based medications, some antihistamines prescribed for allergy management, and certain muscle relaxants. Let me be absolutely clear about something of critical importance. Nothing in this guide suggests that you stop taking medications prescribed by your physician. You should never independently adjust, reduce, or discontinue any prescription medication without explicit guidance from the prescribing doctor. Doing so can have serious, dangerous, and potentially life-threatening medical consequences. What this update means is that you need to have a direct, honest, and proactive conversation with your prescribing physician about your specific medications and their documented effects on driving ability. Ask your doctor directly whether any of your current prescriptions carry warnings or advisories about operating motor vehicles. Ask whether the timing of your doses can be adjusted to minimize any impairment risk during the hours when you regularly need to drive. Ask whether any of your current medications are known to produce effects that could appear as impairment to a law enforcement officer, even if you personally feel alert and entirely capable. Your prescribing physician can also provide documentation of your prescription medications that you should keep in your vehicle. Having clear documentation showing that your prescriptions are legally obtained and properly managed under medical supervision provides important legal protection if you are ever stopped and tested. Ignorance of medication-related impairment laws is not a valid legal defense in court. Protecting yourself requires proactive communication with your healthcare provider before a problem occurs, not after. Rule Change 4: Distracted Driving Laws. The expanded definition, catching drivers off guard. Most American drivers genuinely believe they already understand and comply with distracted driving laws. You cannot text while driving. You cannot make phone calls without a hands-free device. You have heard this for years and you are confident you are in compliance. The definition of prohibited distracted driving behavior has now been significantly expanded in most states. And that expanded definition is actively catching drivers who believe with complete sincerity that they are following the law. Here's the critical change that most drivers are not aware of. Simply holding your mobile phone in your hand while operating a vehicle is now a citable offense in most states, regardless of whether you are actively using the device in any way. You do not need to be texting. You do not need to be making or receiving a call. You do not need to be looking at the screen or interacting with any application. The act of holding the phone in your hand while the vehicle is in operation is the violation itself. This rule applies even when your vehicle is stopped at a red light. It applies when you are stopped in slow-moving, stop-and-go traffic. It applies when you are sitting in a parking lot with your engine running. The device must be completely out of your hand, either mounted in an approved dashboard or windshield holder, placed in a cup holder, stored in a bag or purse, or positioned anywhere that does not involve your hand making contact with the device. Law enforcement officers have received specific instruction to prioritize observation of drivers for this behavior. Officers are actively watching for phones in drivers' hands during traffic stops, at intersections, and during routine highway patrol operations. First offense fines begin at approximately $150 in most jurisdictions and increase substantially for each subsequent violation. Multiple distracted driving citations within a specified period can trigger automatic license review proceedings and mandatory driver improvement course requirements. The practical solution is straightforward and requires only a minor adjustment to your existing routine. Purchase an inexpensive phone mount that attaches securely to your dashboard or windshield. Before you start your engine, place your phone in the mount or store it completely out of reach. If you need to make a call, connect through your vehicle's Bluetooth system or use a wired or wireless earpiece that allows fully hands-free operation. If you need to view directions or respond to a message, pull completely off the road and into a legal parking area before picking up your device. One inexpensive phone mount eliminates your legal exposure to this violation entirely. Rule Change 5: Parking distance from crosswalks. The violation millions are committing right now. Parking regulations near intersections and crosswalks have been updated, and the specific change is precise enough that drivers who regularly park in familiar spots they have used for years may find themselves receiving citations without initially understanding why. The updated standard in most jurisdictions now requires that no vehicle may be parked within 25 feet of a marked or unmarked crosswalk at any intersection. In many areas, the previously enforced distance was 15 to 20 feet from the crosswalk. That additional 5 to 10 feet may appear minor on paper, but consider how many parking spots near intersections that drivers have relied on for years now fall within the newly prohibited zone under the updated measurement standard. The reasoning behind the increased required clearance distance centers on pedestrian safety. Vehicles parked too close to crosswalks create visual obstructions that prevent both drivers and pedestrians from clearly seeing each other before a pedestrian steps into the roadway. Increasing the required clear distance measurably improves sightlines and directly reduces the risk of pedestrian accidents at intersections. From an enforcement perspective, officers do not need to observe a near-miss incident or an actual safety event to issue a parking citation. Simply measuring the distance between your parked vehicle and the nearest crosswalk marking is sufficient to issue a fine if your vehicle falls within the prohibited zone. Before parking near any intersection, measure your distance from the crosswalk carefully. Count off the distance visually. Look for painted curb markings that may already indicate established no parking zones. When in doubt, simply move further from the intersection to ensure you are clearly and comfortably outside the 25-foot restricted zone. A parking citation seems minor in isolation until you calculate the fine combined with any insurance reporting implications that follow. Rule change. 6. Failure to yield. Increased penalties with license consequences. Failure to yield violations have always been a component of traffic law. What has fundamentally changed is the severity of the consequences attached to these violations and the specific behaviors now being prioritized for enforcement activity. Failing to yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian in any marked or unmarked crosswalk now carries a minimum fine of $200 in most states for a first offense alone. Beyond the direct financial penalty, a failure to yield violation now results in a mandatory point being added to your driving record. In several states, a failure to yield conviction also triggers a mandatory traffic improvement course requirement that must be completed within a specified time frame following the conviction. The license review threshold has also been formally tightened. 3 failure to yield violations within any 18-month period can now automatically trigger formal license review proceedings in most jurisdictions. A license review can result in additional testing requirements, license restrictions, or, in cases where a documented pattern of dangerous behavior is established, license suspension. Crosswalks without traffic control signals are specifically highlighted in current enforcement priorities. Drivers are legally required to yield to pedestrians in any marked crosswalk, regardless of whether a traffic signal is present or controlling the intersection. If a pedestrian is already in the crosswalk or is clearly and visibly preparing to enter the crosswalk, you are legally required to stop your vehicle completely and yield before proceeding. The following distance update. Every highway driver must know. The minimum legally referenced following distance standard on highways has been formally updated in official law enforcement guidance documents. The previous common standard, 1 car length of following distance for every 10 miles per hour of travel speed, has been replaced with a time-based standard that is both easier to apply consistently and more accurately reflects the physical realities of highway driving. The current legally referenced minimum following distance is 3 seconds of travel time between your vehicle and the vehicle directly ahead of you under normal dry road conditions. Under adverse weather conditions, including rain, snow, fog, ice, or any other condition that reduces your vehicle's stopping capability or visibility, the recommended and legally referenced minimum following distance increases to 6 seconds. How do you accurately measure 3 seconds of following distance while driving? Watch the vehicle immediately ahead of you pass a fixed reference point, a road sign, a bridge support column, a clearly visible lane marking on the pavement. Count the elapsed seconds from the moment they pass that reference point until your vehicle reaches the exact same point. If you arrive at that reference point in less than 3 seconds, you are following too closely and are in violation of the current standard. If you are involved in a rear-end collision and a subsequent investigation determines you were following too closely based on the current 3-second standard, you bear automatic liability for that collision, regardless of the actions of the driver ahead of you at the time of impact. This is not a minor technicality. It is the legal standard that determines financial and legal responsibility when highway accidents occur. Give yourself adequate space. 3 seconds at minimum under normal conditions. 6 seconds in any adverse weather situation. It is the simplest and most consistently effective legal protection available to every driver on every highway in the country. Final summary: what every driver must do before the next drive. The highway rule changes taking effect right now represent the most significant update to daily driving standards that most American drivers have encountered in years. These are not theoretical changes pending future implementation. Enforcement is active and it is happening immediately. Construction zones now carry doubled fines at all times, regardless of whether any workers are present. Slowing to a stop at a highway merge point is now a citable traffic violation. Holding your phone in your hand while driving is now illegal in most states, including at red lights. Parking within 25 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection is now strictly measured and enforced. Failure to yield carries mandatory driving record points and can trigger formal license review proceedings. Following distance standards have been formally updated and are applied in accident liability determinations. You are now informed, you are prepared. And that preparation is genuinely valuable because most of the drivers sharing the road with you tomorrow will not know any of this. Drive carefully. Stay current with your specific state's DMV requirements. Consult your prescribing physician about any prescription medications you take regularly. And make the small practical adjustments that keep you on the right side of every one of these updated regulations. Share this guide with every driver in your life. The information here is too important and too immediately relevant to keep to yourself. This content is provided for general educational and informational purposes only. Traffic laws vary by state and jurisdiction. Always consult your specific state DMV website and qualified legal counsel for guidance directly applicable to your individual situation. Subscribe to Senior USA Hub for more content that keeps you informed and protected.